Chapter 3. Together and Apart. When I'm with her, I hope. Nell Sorrow speaking candidly with Mandragora. As the grotesque olden soul, Wrangel Gola, appeared on the forward window of the Deep Blue, Nell Sorrow slipped off the bridge, through the doorway at the back of the round room. Gloomily, he walked away from the command chamber, passing people in the hallway who were busily coming and going. Everyone wore the white and blue uniforms that pegged them as belonging to Ravania's alliance. Long ago that uniform had belonged to the Amara. Nell's mind was spinning as he made his way to his quarters. The dark doors that were trimmed with silver slid aside, admitting him, and he walked across the small room, past the sitting area, and stood at a curved window on the neck of the ship that looked out on space. He'd never told Ravania this, but he sometimes didn't like being on the Deep Blue. The ship had been grown according to old Amara tech, and thus it was dark blue in color, almost black, everywhere. It made Nell feel a little claustrophobic. He stared out at the vastness of space and took some calming breaths. It hadn't helped his mood seeing Ravenala again. It never did. Sighing, Nell let his head droop. "Why am I here?" he asked himself. He was quiet for a long moment, and then looked up again, staring out at space. "Because she asked you to be here," he answered himself. "Because you want to be here. Need to." Nell hated Wrangel. He hated his face, his voice, his attitude. He hated the way he treated Ravania. It was better that he'd left the bridge. Nell's hand fell down to his pocket where he kept his calm. He closed his hand into a fist, resisting the urge that came upon him all too often these days. It always happened like this, when he felt the most hopeless. Gritting his teeth, he turned away from the window. The chime at his door rang, and he knew it was her. He closed his eyes and let out a sigh. "Come in," he said. The door slid open, and he looked, watching Ravania step inside the room. The door slid closed behind her. She stared at him, her brown eyes probing. She always startled him with her undying beauty, her eternal youth. It hurt him to be around her again, but being here strengthened him too, gave him hope. "Are you all right?" Ravania finally asked, true concern and tenderness in her voice. "Why do you ask?" Nell wondered, forcing himself to smile. "You get weird when you see Ravenala sometimes," Ravania pointed out. "Yeah, I'm sorry about that," Nell grimaced. Then he asked, "What's the plan?" "Wrangel is going to meet us on Bindar in the second galaxy," Ravania explained. "Really?" Nell asked in surprise. "Well, he said he would," Ravania sighed. "For what that's worth." "Why Vindar?" Nell wondered, furrowing his brow. "There are rumors that Bandar of Bindari knows something about where the gateway is on Aspel. We're going to do what we can to help Ravenala find it." "Then you're really getting involved?" Nell asked. "You don't approve?" Ravania wondered. "I do. I've always been a proponent of helping the Kajna, but I thought the Overdawn Council advised you to stay out of this." There was no hiding the bitterness in his voice when Nell mentioned the Overdawn. "This is my area of the universe now. They advise, but I'm deciding not to heed that advice," Ravania explained. "Is that true?" He couldn't help wondering. "You're going to honk them off," Nell commented. He couldn't help the smirk that bent the corner of his mouth. "Well, it was worth it," Ravania offered, suddenly beaming at him. "What do you mean?" Nell asked. "To see you smile, it's worth it to make the Overdawn Council a little grumpy," she clarified. Nell's smile grew just a little more, and he wished she meant that. Ravania stepped toward Nell, and she took his hands in hers. "Have I told you how much I appreciate you being with me?" "You don't have to," Nell responded. "I think I do," Ravania countered. "I know it's hard for you, my situation, these husbands I've been given to by the Overdawn Council. It's just duty," Nell finished for her. Ravania nodded, her eyes becoming glassy, and he noticed her absently twisting a blue crystal ring on her right ring finger. Nell took up her hand and looked down at the ring. He turned his shocked eyes to Ravania. You're wearing it again? He asked, unable to hide the astonishment in his voice. I don't care what Wrangel says, Ravania responded. Nell hesitated for a moment and wondered. He wondered only for a moment. Then he said, Maybe it's time. Ravania blinked. I mean, you're feeling so rebellious right now. Tell the Overdawn Council to go packing. Tell Wrangel to go packing. Let us... He stopped when Ravania's head drooped. I can't, she whispered. Nell can never be, Nell heard in his mind again. Duty, Nell said. Yes, Ravania replied. No, I mean bog crap, Nell pressed. Ravania looked up at him, eyes widening. You don't need them. You don't need any of them, Ravania, Nell charged, remembering how he'd been so ready to kill Selithipid over Arnsadel, and the Overdawn Council be damned. The throne of Ravan needs a steward, Ravania told Nell grimly. Someone needs to keep the areas of space my father won during the Hell War secure. The Overdawn Council decides who. I know, and they refuse to choose me, Nell responded. You refuse it too, Ravania reminded. You refuse to take on the mantle of Blue Wolf, or to open your full power. Nell was quiet for a moment, his eyes haunted. His ancient memories, like a dream, moved through his mind. You didn't see me in the Hell War, Ravania, he said softly. You didn't see what I became. But I know who you are, Ravania countered. Nell focused on her. I don't want those things, Ravania. I just want to be with you, and I believe you want to be with me. It's not enough. It should be, Nell replied, and felt like he could see that void in Ravania, that part that seemed to have been missing for so long. Poem, he thought to himself. Ravania squeezed her eyes closed and tears ran down her cheeks. I'm sorry, she told Nell. I'm sorry, She turned to start away, but Nell caught her hand and turned her back. She stared at him, agony, sadness, helplessness in her eyes. I'll understand if you don't want to come with me on this, she whispered. I know it's hard for you to work with Wrangel, and I understand your feelings about what you overheard after the Remlon incident. I'll survive, Nell answered, pulling her closer to him. Ravania stared at him, more tears escaping her dark eyes. It's what I do, Nell added. Besides, we both know. I've been away too long. His face filled with sadness, and he admitted, I got pretty hopeless. Ravania reached out and gently touched the side of his face. I'm sorry, she whispered. Mandragora said I need to stop running away, Nell explained. Ravania didn't say anything. Besides, Nell chuckled with a little force, haven't I always said I like me better when I'm with you? Ravania gently ran her thumb across Nell's cheek, staring into his eyes. One day, we'll make this all right now. When? Nell asked, and his voice quivered a little. A depth of nearly unfathomable sorrow flickered in Ravania's eyes, and, lowering her head a little, she admitted softly, I don't know. Someday? Nell asked. Ravania looked up at him, and he could see how much part of her wished she could say something different, like today or tomorrow. But there was that something holding her back, that ability she had to be more worried about her duty than she did about them. Someday, Ravania agreed, with a very sad smile, her eyes glistening. Nell knew what that meant. Ravania turned and pulled away from him. She walked to the door and stopped. She stood there with her head down for a moment. You are right, Nell, she said in a choked voice. It should be enough. But it isn't. And I don't know why. She couldn't say any more, so she triggered the door and stepped out into the hallway. The door slid closed behind her, leaving Nell alone. When she was gone, Nell let out a shuddering sigh and his head drooped, as tears streamed from his eyes. He didn't even try and hold them back. Thank you for listening. Please like, subscribe, and share with your friends, and there are more episodes on the way.